Welcome along to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. Raf Diallo here, and today I'm joined by former Dundalk striker David McMillan, the League of Ireland's record goal scorer in Europe, and ex-Drogheda and Shamrock Rovers defender Graham Gartland, winner of the league in 2007. We'll be building up to Ireland's doubleheader against the USA, with Vera, Pauw having named her squad last Friday, and also talking about the latest SSE or Tristy League action, and also casting an eye towards the Dublin derby, as well as touching on a couple of stories from the Premier League. But first of all, lads, welcome along. David, how is obviously you announced your retirement a couple of months ago, just ahead of the new season, but how's life after football and this new chapter treating you now?
Yeah, it's been good. Obviously moved into my own business in architecture with T-Lane Architects with myself and my brother, and still trying to stay linked in with the football and get into as many games as I can, and started the B license and things like that. So it's a new phase of life, but one that I'm enjoying so far.
And obviously football is still being quite a part of it, given that you're on this podcast, and as you said, you're taking the coaching license as well. Speaking of Irish football anyway, Graham, I was speaking to you in the build-up to the Latvia friendly last week, and obviously that built into what was a good performance against France in the opening Euro 2024 qualifier. How do you reflect on it now? Do you have that sense of positivity that a lot of people would have about the way Ireland approached it?
Yeah, if you look at it in isolation, you have to be positive about the performance. The question marks are obviously around what comes next, and the games that Ireland should be taking points from. Are we able to do that? You're never going to dominate a game totally against the top opposition like France. So the game is based nearly in moments, and can you produce quality in those moments? And when you get them, can you take advantage of them? We were unlucky not to take advantage of some of them. I know from obviously we were a threat from set pieces, which has probably been the norm in the last 10 years. When you consider the likes of Shane Duffy would have been one of our main goal threats, but we were getting into better areas and working the ball into better areas rather than maybe just being direct. But it was a positive performance, and everybody felt it and everybody was positive towards it. But there's still obviously the question mark is, can they go on and build on that performance and take a result away in Greece? So David's worked with Stephen and I've worked with Stephen, and he just wants to be positive about everything and push everything to the good side of the foot, what he's seen on the day. But it has to be backed up with positive results as well as performances.
Yeah, and those Greece and Gibraltar games coming in June, and obviously a very different type of challenge, arguably more pressure on them, given France is probably more of a free hit. But David, as Graham said there, you've a vast amount of experience playing under Stephen Kenny previously during what was a great spell with Dundalk, both here and then in Europe. I was kind of curious, what's he like as a motivator in the build-up to big games like this? Because obviously we know about the culture of football he wants to instill and the philosophy, but in terms of actually getting players and staff to buy in, how did he used to do that at Dundalk?
I think that's probably Stephen's biggest strength is being able to motivate his players. But probably for the France game, there wasn't much needed to be said. I think any player would dream of playing that game against some of the best players in the world, and I think the performance showed that everybody, the energy in the stadium, even from fans, players as well. So as you said, a lot rides on the summer now and the big games that are to come, and where we expect to get points and hopefully put a good showing in the group. I think when the group was drawn, everybody thought it's going to be very tough, but it's these games, particularly against Greece and Gibraltar, that we want to go and show that we're a good side. And I think that's where Steve will learn his keep and be able to motivate the guys for those games.
Yeah, and as a striker over the two games between the Latvia and France games, what did you make of Evan Ferguson's, I suppose, the way he's been integrated into that forward line? Obviously, he scored against Latvia, but the France game was obviously going to be tougher going given the opposition, but he seemed to hold his own still.
Yeah, very tough game. I think he's up against Upamenko and Kanate. It's not going to be an easy day, particularly when service is going to be limited. But he battled hard and put himself about, and I think he'll be delighted to get off the mark against Latvia and a tidy striker's goal. So he'll be pleased with that. And look, he's at such a young age. We don't want to put too much pressure on him at 18. And he's absolutely flying with Brighton. Obviously missed the game at the weekend, but hopefully be back during the week. And it's great to see such a young lad doing so well, and hopefully he can build on it.
Yeah, hopefully that is the case. But anyway, let's turn our attentions to the SSE Electricity League Premier Division. So on Friday night, Cork City and Drogheda United drew 1-1. Ali Gilchrist's own goal cancelling out Rory Keating's headed opener. And then Shamrock Rovers finally off the mark in terms of wins, winning 4-0 away at 10-man Dundalk. Robbie Benson sent off just after the half-hour mark. And then Shells and Derry, that was live on RT2 and the RT Player. And Derry City won 1-0. Shells were down to 10 men. We'll get onto that, and also what Damien Duff said afterwards to Tony O'Donoghue. And then St. Pat's also put a bit of poor form behind them with a 3-0 win over UCD. And then on Saturday, Bohemians continued their own great start to the season with a 1-0 win at Sligo Rovers. Late header from Novak to decide that. But let's listen to Damien Duff, Shelbourne manager. Now, he was speaking to Tony O'Donoghue after the defeat to Derry City, but in relation to the second yellow card for Paddy Barrett. So this is what he had to say.
Damien, how disappointing is that? Because after going a goal down, it's probably fair to say you were the better team, certainly in the first half.
Yeah, for sure. I think we started well for the first 60 seconds. After that, listen, they control the game, I'd have to say, for 20 odd minutes or so. They've scored a set piece. We'll feel a bit upset with that one, because we know they always have quality. Rory sets us teams up. They always have work set pieces. After that, yeah, we got back in the game. Some good chances, but the sending off obviously kills it, makes it difficult in the second half.
Paddy got a yellow in added time in the first half. Probably didn't need to, but then the second one was very debatable, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Listen, it's probably subjective. People might have their opinions on it. I don't think it helps when coaches are coming off, walking through the tunnel at half time and influencing officials that, you know, Paddy's next foul, he has to go off. I didn't think it was a foul. I thought McGonigal tried to back into him. Paddy's come around the front because he's a big strong boy and he's got punished for that. Second yellow, red card, game over. It's not acceptable. But listen,
because if that's a foul, the block, which happens in every corner, that they did for their goal, probably should be a foul as well then.
Yeah, listen, we try and do that. It's big boy football, blocks on set pieces, you know, so people do it, and hats off to Rory, scored off a work set piece, so brilliant stuff. But again, it's a refereeing decision that I don't accept. I don't accept the standard of refereeing in this country, and listen, we'll have to move on with it.
I don't want you to get more than the yellow card that you did get, but it seems to be a trend in games. There are more yellow cards, more red cards this season, it seems.
I believe so. I think there was an article a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, listen, we're let down again. It's just a poor decision. I don't know what did he be seeing at times. And listen, it's not just me saying it. The fans in the stadium, whether it be home or away, I'm sure Rory has said it many times himself, other opposing managers, coaches, so it's not acceptable. Yeah, of course, yeah, and listen, we're trying to up the standards. The fans, amazing, in every ground, not just Shelbourne fans, every ground in the country, they're sellout week in, week out, standards are going through the roof. Referees need to come with us,
Thanks, Damien.
Cheers, Tony.
All right, so that is Shelbourne manager Damien Duff speaking to Tony O'Donoghue after the defeat to Derry City. He was talking about Paddy Barrett's second yellow card, which was his arm kind of swinging out in a challenge with Jamie and McGonigal. And he wasn't the only manager also that was unhappy with the refereeing decision. Stephen O'Donnell, Dundalk manager, was also unhappy with the Robbie Benson red card, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Graham, on what he said there in regards to the standard of refereeing in the league, do you agree with it from what you've seen across the last few years?
Yeah, I don't think I'd agree with Damien probably on it a lot. I think myself and David probably, when I was playing in the league, back when I played, now we probably had the same gripes as well. So I don't think this is just a new thing. We would have went full time in the 2000s, and a lot of the refs would have probably struggled to come with us as well at that stage. And I think at this stage they're probably similar. That's not to pile in on the referees. It's always been an issue, especially the opening 10 games. I always find at the start of every season, they're probably given a mandate to clamp down on certain incidents and certain things. And what comes about from that is a lot of yellow cards, a lot of red cards for stuff that probably later on in the season won't be punished. So I'd agree with Damien. I think Damien's frustration comes from like Paddy Barrett and David's a centre forward, and you're fighting for the ground off the kick out, and when the centre forward tries to back into you as a centre back, you nearly let him walk backwards, and then you try and step around the front of him. That's what Paddy Barrett does. What he does then is to stop the striker from coming back round the front. He puts his arm out to say to the striker, well, if you want to come back round the front of me, you have a bit more of a distance to travel. I don't think Paddy Pratt swung his arm, and I think he's put his arm there, and obviously then there's contact, and that leads to a second yellow. And I think it's just about the battles that go on between centre backs and centre forwards about holding the ground for kick outs and winning headers. I think a couple of minutes later, Doherty has a kick out at Coyle right in front of it on the halfway line, and Doherty doesn't get booked; he gets away with one, and then Damien subsequently gets a yellow card. So the frustration would be high, is that there's no consistency with it, and that's the frustration. In fairness to Pauw McLaughlin, he probably does get a decision right on at the very end when Shells are screaming for the penalty and Kyle Robinson goes down the box, and he doesn't give the penalty, where it would have been probably easy for them to go, well, I haven't done Shells any favours here tonight, so I'll give them a penalty. He hasn't done that, and he's made the right call on that, but it doesn't negate the fact that he's probably made the wrong call on Paddy Barrett, and then obviously subsequently made the wrong call in booking Damien Duff for the mistake that he has made in not booking Doherty.
Yeah, and David, similarly on that second yellow card incident, and obviously which then resulted in Paddy Barrett getting sent off. What do you make of it? And then also the wider question of the standard of refereeing in the league. Where do you stand on it?
Yeah, I agree with everything Graham said there. I think I've played with Paddy. I've trained with him on a daily basis. He's a physical player. He wants to get touch tight. He wants to get involved with his centre forwards, and I think, Paddy's done brilliantly to get in front of the man, and exactly what Graham said, there's probably a little bit of contact there. If the referee feels that that's a foul, I don't have a problem with that. I think you've got to read the situation then and realise we don't need to give a second booking here, and there's absolutely no need to send the player off. And I think that's the frustration. I know you're going to speak about the Robbie Benson one as well. I think it's the same feeling there that, everybody in the stadium felt, maybe a yellow card here, but there's no need to send off the player. And I think that's the frustration for players, to see games changed on tiny little moments, that there isn't a real need to get involved. I went early in the season out today, I went to watch Bohemians and Dundalk, and I think there was 11 or 12 yellow cards, and I came away thinking from the game, I didn't see a bad challenge. Now there was maybe 2 or 3 where there was sort of cheeky pullbacks and the ref has to give a booking, but you're coming away thinking there could have been a player sent off in that game for absolutely no reason. I think that's where the frustration is, that we're seeing it even in the Premier League now, in the English Premier League, that the referees are letting a little bit more go. And I think we could probably follow suit in that regard and try and let the game flow a little bit more. And the little niggly fouls, they don't have to be yellow cards, because referees put themselves in a situation then where they've got a tricky decision to make later in the game that they don't have to make.
Yeah, and the red card at the point that it happened, Derry City were leading 1-0 through a Ryan Graydon goal, and of course Shells played quite well in certain ways, maybe without the end product, and obviously as the game wore on after that, with the disadvantage of being down to 10. Graham, Derry's performance, what did you make of it, and also the long-term impact of Alan Reynolds' departure as well as assistant?
Yeah, he's been brilliant for Rory, and obviously Rory taking his first job, so someone that experienced Alan Reynolds behind him, he'd be a bit mad. Alan, would have played against him years ago and even come up against him a few times, and he'd be a good character. Alan, a lot of time from, but obviously he has personal reasons that he wants to go back to Waterford. But Rory would have leaned heavily on him, and especially in his first couple of seasons there, and he's been vital to Derry's success of late. Derry had 57% possession, which you'd imagine is probably a little bit higher because of the extra man. They created a good few chances. It was a well-worked set piece. They got a block on, I'm not sure who the player was for Shells. They got a block on him, and then Graydon just pulls around the back and gets a tap in. Well, not a tap in, it's a good finish, 6 yards out. But they created a good few chances, but they've shown that they're dogged, and it wasn't probably a great night for football all around the league with the weather. The pitch looked heavy at Talcott, but they were direct at times, Derry, and it worked for them. The chance in the first minute comes off just a long ball down the pitch. It's a header through, and McGonigal goes through. I think Luke Bourne, or I'm not sure who clears her off the line, but McGonigal obviously is straight through. So a couple of the chances came from just being a little bit more direct, and they're shown that they're probably pragmatic in terms of tough place to go and play football at times, Talca, with obviously the pitch and the weather on the evening, but Shells are a tough nut to crack as well. They had similar shots on goal to each other, so it showed the Shells were still a threat, but they probably are missing Boyd up front. They did a great chance with Moylan when he chops inside, gets his shot away. I think Cairns makes a save, and not sure who's the one following up. Levy. I think Levy's the one following up and puts it over the bar. So it was an exciting game in that sense. But there you're showing that they're digging out results, as well as obviously some of the games where they're winning comfortably as well.
Yeah, and as I said, Reynolds expected to link up anyway with Keith Long at Waterford. It hasn't actually been officially announced yet, but it should be coming soon anyway. And he would have had to send off in that game. But in one of the other games on Friday night, of course, Shamrock Rovers getting back to winning ways at the seventh attempt this season, 4-0 at Dundalk. And before we listen to Stephen Bradley and talk about the Shamrock Rovers side of it, it's a heavy defeat for Dundalk, David. And of course, as you mentioned, the red card for Robbie Benson probably, now they were losing 1-0 at that point, but it obviously had a detrimental impact in terms of their attempts to try and get back into it.
Yeah, I was at that game on Friday, and Dundalk actually started the game pretty well, and would have felt they were probably the better side for the opening maybe 20 minutes or so, and a well-worked goal by Rovers. In fairness, that Dan Cleary puts a great ball in for Gaffney around the back stick, and he finishes it well. And Rovers were a threat. Johnny Kenny and Gaffney were playing together up front, and they kind of work well together. Johnny Kenny looks to get in behind and always testing your back four, and Gaffney's just got, he's a clever player. He drifts into good areas and a bit of guile, and they were causing problems. But Dundalk probably felt they were well in the game, even at 1-0 down. They had started well, and probably a bit of a sucker punch to go behind. But the red card certainly changes everything then with Benson sent off. And as I said, it was probably, and the ref didn't need to make that decision. And Rovers made it 2-0 before half time. And to be honest, I think that was game dead and buried at that stage. And Dundalk huffed and puffed in the second half, but it was always going to be difficult. And Rovers sort of ramped it up and got two more in the second.
Yeah, and Dundalk have Sligo next. What have you made of the start to this season anyway? Because the first couple of games were a little bit tricky, and in terms of the results that actually came out, and then they seemed to pick themselves up until this result.
Yeah, they had a good spell. The last time they had sort of 3 games in a week, they picked up good results, and sort of what was a slow enough start started to look promising. I think Friday's game against Rovers will be a kick in the teeth, but I don't think O'Donnell would have been too disheartened by everything that happened when you consider the red card, and I think he'll feel they were performing well and they gave it their all. So it's one of those that you just have to let it go quickly and move on. And there's 3 games this week again with games on Friday, Monday. So it's a big week for everyone in the league, but certainly for Dundalk to try and as you said, try and get back to winning ways against Sligo.
Yeah, a big week for Shamrock Rovers, of course, as well, with starting off with the derby on Friday against Bohemians. Let's listen to Stephen Bradley.
I've been saying it for weeks that the performance has been there, and I felt the scoreline tonight, I think that was coming for quite a number of weeks. It could have happened in the last 2 games.
Comprehensive win in the end, even though they had Benson sent off. I think you were pretty much in control. I think you'd agree.
Yeah, I think we were in control from the start. Like I said, when we went out to 10 men, I felt we obviously took over completely. But I thought we were very good from the start.
How did you block that noise out? We were talking about it at the Shelbourne game where one of your players looked a little bit peeved. There was something said from the crowd, and Sean Hoare went up and started talking to them. Yeah. How did you block that noise out then, even from your own supporters?
I know, look, there was 850 fans in Shelbourne. I was one fan, our fans have been incredible for us. You see the support we've had in Tallaght Stadium this year, you see the support away from home. They understand what they're looking at. They're not silly, they know that the performance has been good. So it's been fun. When you look at all the stats from the start of the season, we're number 1 in every category, so that tells you we're right there. So there was never any panic, and when we sat down and went through it last week as a group, we knew we were in a good place.
All right, that is Shamrock Rovers manager Stephen Bradley after that 4-0 win over Dundalk. Graham, of course, that consigns the whole winless starting to the dustbin of history for this season anyway. But just in time as well, as we said, there's the derby at Dalymount Park, which is going to be a massive test. Obviously, form sometimes goes out the window there, so it was timely enough for Rovers on that front.
Like you said, I think Stephen had touched on it, and they had been playing well. Like the other than the Cork game where they probably didn't defend well for the 4 goals, they have been performing well in the games. I've been at a few of them where I'm thinking how they haven't won that or come away with a victory. Again, goes back to Stephen had touched on it probably a month ago about the refereeing and the whole Estonia thing, and now obviously when Damien says it heightens it again. So again, Stevie O'Donnell would be a bit annoyed with the Benson sending off, and that's something that Shamrock Rovers have had to go through at the early part of the season. going into the Bohs game, it's probably the most anticipated derby in a long, long time, considering where Bohs are. You know, they're sitting top of the league. They've won the last 4 games. They've only conceded 5 goals. They've scored 12. You know, so they're in a good place. Like, and to go to Sligo on a Saturday and pick up a late goal would do their confidence a world of good, and they'll be flying high going into this. But Shamrock Rovers, these games isn't about probably sometimes, you know, playing nice football. It's about just grinding out results, because it can be hectic, and it's similar to what we said about Ireland game. Just who can play in their moments, who can just settle the game down for 5 minutes and produce a bit of quality. And whichever team can do that on the night will come out with the win. But really looking forward to this one. Actually, I think it's going to be a cracker of a game.
Yeah, how do you feel they match up tactically?
Yeah, I think with Rovers playing their 3-5-2 and obviously with the 2 up front, it can be a case where they're matched up evenly in midfield if in terms of 3 in midfield, and then it's about which fullback breaks out to do a wing back and what channel then is covered by Bohs and how the midfielders get over and screen the front 2. If Bohs play with 2 up front, which is Afolabi and who's the other lad? Afolabi offset and Akintunde, that's the one. Like, can they run and work into the channels against Rovers? Rovers' pace in their team is probably at their back, in the back line. The 3 lads at the back are really, really quick, with Lopez due to come back in, and obviously Kenny giving them pace at the front end. But the midfield battle will be interesting. Buckley might come back in. Adam MacDonald has been fantastic. But the standout for me for Bohs has been Ali Coote. I think he's been fantastic. He's been the driving force from midfield, pushing them forward. So like I said, maybe a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3 against a 3-5-2, with Rovers playing actually with 2 up front and 3 in midfield. So it makes for an interesting tactical battle.
Yeah, and 10 points the difference. Obviously, we're talking just 7 games into the season. The table will settle down after a while. I think, as you said often, Graham, after 10 games or so, we'll have a better idea. But at the moment, as it stands, David, 10 points between Bohemians and Shamrock Rovers. Obviously, the pressure then is probably more on Rovers on that front, even at this early juncture. So, from a Bohs point of view, is there an element of a slight free hit to it in terms of, you know, not overly having to go for it even at this early point of the season?
Yeah, probably the pressure is on Rovers, certainly, but you know, they'll be buoyed by the win up in Oriel last week, so it does make for a cracking game. Bohs are probably, you know, they would have not anticipated to be, you know, 3 points ahead at this stage, and as you said, 10 ahead of Rovers, so that does put big pressure on Rovers to go and win the game. They don't want to fall any further behind even at this early stage, but it does set up for a juicy clash on Friday, and it definitely probably is pressure on Rovers to try and get the win, but they won't be faced by that. You know, they've won 3 titles in a row. They're used to pressure, and in fairness to them, you know, they've delivered year on year. So it's a different challenge this year, and it's certainly a derby that everyone will be looking forward to.
Yeah, and just on Sligo as well, still 4th in the table on 9 points level with Drogheda as well, and that's off the back of that defeat to Bohemians. So I suppose, David, it does show sort of that midfield mix mid-table mix is gonna change. I suppose it's gonna, Shamrock Rovers are probably gonna climb out of that, but it seems really, really competitive there in the middle because there's so many teams just really close to each other. Yeah,
I think the results have fluctuated week on week. You can't quite tell who's where at the moment, and you know, I watched the Sligo Derry game a couple of weeks ago, and Sligo were very, very impressive, and the game on Saturday night by all means was probably a scrappy enough game in tough conditions. I think to go there and nick a win, I think Bohs will be absolutely delighted with that. Decky Devine will be so happy, particularly a set piece late in the game. It's the perfect way to win it, really, when things aren't going perfectly. And a disappointment for Sligo, but they have been, you know, they have some good players. They've been very impressive, I think, this season. So John Russell will be disappointed, but he won't be too disheartened.
Yeah, and another couple of your former clubs, Pats and UCD, were up against each other as well. And Pats had been on a poor run, but just I think maybe it was the right fixture for them at home, and a 3-0 win with Chris Forrester scoring a couple of goals either side of Jake Mulroney. Again, similar, I suppose, to Shamrock Rovers, very timely.
Yeah, I think obviously they had a bit of a poor run, particularly the defeat up in Oriel, but you know, the 2-2 at Rovers was a decent result in Tala, and to back that up with a comfortable win against UCD, they'll be pleased. And might see them motoring again. You know, there's a very good squad there in Richmond Park, so it's just trying to get it to gel and get them working, and you know, a couple of good results. So, you know, in the next week, in those 3 games, could change everything for St. Pat's. But yeah, they look very comfortable. Obviously, a mistake for the Mulroney goal by the UCD keeper, but in general, they look comfortable. And Forrester, you know, with a brilliant finish for the 3rd goal, little dink finish, and they look strong. They have plenty of other chances. I think that they'll feel they want to get the likes of Tommy Lonergan up scoring goals, Owen Doyle back scoring goals, and if they do that, I think you know, they'll be difficult for every side in the league.
Yeah, as I said, that whole mid-table mix, Pats are only 3 points off, and they're 8th at the moment, 3 points off Dundalk, who are 3rd, so it just shows how competitive it is there. Graham, Cork City and Drogheda, so they couldn't be separated, 1-1 draw. Rory Keaton scoring the opener with a header, but then a very unfortunate own goal off Ali Gilchrist, which just looped over the goalkeeper. So Cork will probably look at this as a slight missed opportunity, not because it's Drogheda, because Drogheda have been really good and, you know, are in a good position on the table, but more so because I suppose the nature of the goal that was conceded.
Yeah, exactly. It was a really well worked. Well, Keaton has been probably the informed striker this season. He's been excellent for Cork. I have to say, I watched him even in the Tala game, and he was brilliant. He was really good. He gets across people. He's really strong in the air. He has a leap, but he has this ability where he can hang in the air for a little bit long. And he does that for the goal. It's a great ball in from Aaron Bulger, who's come back in after the injury he got in Tala Stadium. And he just floats a ball in, and Keating is up early and stops the defender jumping, and nearly on the way down, he heads it in. It's a really brilliant play from him. But it was just a sort of a hopeful ball in from Markey that swings it in on his left foot as he's falling backwards, and Gilchrist doesn't know what's behind him, so he just swings about his right foot at it. Maybe if he... I'm not sure if he goes with his right or his left foot, and the keeper's on his way out to keep kneeling down, putting his hands in, and it loops over him. But like you said, I think the fact that was just before half time, if they had went in with a 1-goal lead, shooting into the shed end with a 1-goal lead going into the second half, I think even at 1-1, Cork would expect it to maybe create a few more chances going into that end. They had a couple of ones go across the goal. I think they had one cleared off the line, if I remember rightly as well. So they did push to try and get the winner. So you're right, they probably feel that it's 2 points dropped, just taking the draw. But they've been excellent this year at times in the games. And like I said, I think Keaton up front has been a real handful for a lot of the defenders in the league this season.
Yeah, we'll talk about the first division a little bit later on. A lot of intriguing results there. But before that, the Ireland women's team are continuing their preparations for this summer's World Cup debut. And they've got 2 massive tests against the United States coming up. First on the 8th of April and then on the 12th. So the first game on Saturday is taking place in Austin, and both games are going to be live on RT2 and the RT Player. There was a little bit of a worry about Katie McCabe. She picked up an injury during the Champions League match that Arsenal were involved in last week and was seen on crutches, but she's recovered in time, scored what was a brilliant winner against Manchester City. If anybody wants to, well, actually, Graham, seeing as you reacted there, it was a brilliant goal.
Oh, brilliant, yeah. She just she takes it from the right-hand side, opens up on her left foot and smacks it into the top corner. The power she hits it at, and it's only going one place. The celebrations after are fantastic. Everybody got involved. I was thinking she was only in a boot a week ago, and then she's going and doing that. So yeah, it was an unbelievable goal.
Yeah, and 3 new faces in the squad. Peamount United's Tara Hanlon, then there's Alana McAvoy of Shamrock Rovers as well, and then Sophie White, Lewis keeper as well. And there are a number of injuries at the moment. Niamh Fahy not included, Chloe Mustaki, Ellen Malloy, Jessu, Leanne Kieran, and also Megan Campbell unavailable for personal reasons as well. And in total, 5 domestic-based players called up, 3 from what is a very impressive Shamrock Rovers outfit. But let's just listen to Vera Pauw. She was speaking to Tony O'Donoghue at the press conference last week after naming the squad, and she was discussing first facing tough opposition like the USA, which was a trend of what they did in the build-up to the World Cup qualifiers, picking strong opposition to go up against and not worrying too much about the result and focusing on performances and building. And then also she talked about Katie McCabe's injury, but as we know, Katie McCabe, as Graham has outlined there, made a miraculous recovery and scored a brilliant goal.
You have to pull yourself out of your comfort zone to the highest level. So if we get a bad defeat, then of course we don't want that, and of course that will hurt us. But better now than in the first game at the World Cup.
How did you feel personally when you saw the tackle and you saw her having to leave the field?
Yeah, of course, very worried. The only thing that I thought was, like, let it not interfere with her World Cup, because she deserves it so much. And Ireland deserves it.
So that is Ireland manager Vera Pauw speaking ahead of their journey now towards the United States, where they're going to be playing in Austin and then Missouri. First game, as I said, both games are going to be live on RT2 and the RT Player. Coverage for Saturday's game in Austin starts at 7 o'clock here, and kickoff then half an hour later. But there were also midweek results last week in the SSE Electricity League Women's Premier Division, and Bohemians beat DLR Waves 3-0. Peamount United lost 4-1 to Shelbourne, so Shelbourne bouncing back from their defeat at Galway United. Treaty United and Cork City drew 1-1. Shamrock Rovers continued their great start to the season with a big win, 2-1 victory over what is an excellent Wexford side, and then Athlone lost 2-1 at home to Galway United. And Galway again, this is the second week in a row where they've picked up a great result against one of the big hitters. And at the moment, Peamount United top of the table on 12, ahead of Shells, and Shamrock Rovers on 10, and Galway are 5th at the moment on 9 points. And in the first division, as I said earlier, we're the men's first division. Galway United, again, 7 wins from 7 after a 3-1 victory at Athlone Town. Cove Ramblers beat Bray Wanderers 2-1. That's Bray's first defeat of the season, and Cove continuing their great start. And one of the eye-catching results, Waterford thrashing Finn Harps 7-1, and then also Wexford and Treaty United drew 1-1 on Friday. Saturday then, Longford Town with Josh Georgie scoring twice beat Kerry FC 2-0. So Kerry's still waiting for a first win, and Longford, that's their second of the season. First though, Graham, the Keith Long era couldn't have got off to a better start down in Waterford. Yeah. I mean, if you want to get he might have been happy with a scrappy 1-0, but to come away with a 7-1 win, that's a good platform to work off. And obviously, as we said, he's going to be getting a little bit of extra help as well down the road when the Alan Reynolds move as assistant is confirmed.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable start. Like you said, you couldn't have wished for more. I think there was 7-0 up as well in the 81st minute, and Finn Harp scored a consolation goal. And now Dave Rogers would be upset about the manner of defeat, but from Keith Long's point of view, he couldn't have asked for more. It's a fantastic. They have a game in hand now, which is against Treaty. That could put them back up to 14 points, which would be 7 points behind Galway. You have to play them another few times as well. So they'll feel that, right, it's a great start for Long, and can they build on that momentum and try and catch Galway? At the minute, they're 7 points clear of anybody. Cove have had a great start. They're sitting in second on 14 points. So just shows you the pace that Galway United have set at the start of this season has been fantastic. But like you said, with Long going in there, they win that game in hand. They leapfrog Bray into third, go level on points with Cove, and then see can they actually kick on and try and catch Galway United and have a tight race in the first division.
Yeah, and on the other side of that 7-1 result, David, I suppose from a Finn Harp's point of view, I mean, obviously there was going to be a good bit of transition after Ollie Horgan, after he left after I think it was 8 years in charge, and it's they've 6 points at the moment, and given that they were the team that dropped down from the Premier Division, there might have been a little bit of expectation, but maybe that should have been tempered as well, because there's going to be a huge amount of turnover within the squad.
Yeah, there has been a big turnover in players there in Finn Harps, and obviously Dave Rogers has gone in, and it's been probably a difficult start to the season for them. But look, it's only early days, and they won't be happy going down to Waterford and being thrashed, and hopefully they can bounce back in their next game. For Waterford, obviously a brilliant result and a great start for Keith. He'll be absolutely thrilled, and as you say, with Alan Reynolds to come in, I think that's a strong team, and they'll be doing their utmost to try and catch Galway. It makes for an interesting one. Waterford's form going into the end of last season, they're a little bit off the pace, and they just really got motoring. So they'll be trying to do something similar again and see can they catch Galway. But credit to Galway, they've been brilliant.
Yeah, and as you said, Graham, the Cove Ramblers, would have been bottom of the first division last season, but they're kind of flying high. Bray Wanderers, they might have lost to Cove, but under Ian Ryan as well, it's been a really solid start for them. So it's turned that first division table a little bit upside down. Other than obviously Galway flying high, and we expect Waterford to push on. But from third down, it's maybe the expectation is different from the reality.
Yeah, like you said, even at Loan sitting in fifth as well. Like, so James Keddy, Wexford is doing a really good job as well. So like Longford, who would normally be one of the stronger in that division and would have expectations of coming up, they're sitting in seventh. Like you said, with Dave Rogers trying to just change the club around. They're trying to bring in more home-based players, trying to promote more youth players with the work that Kevin McHugh is doing in the academy up there. So that's going to take time. It's not just going to click straight away. Cove have been fantastic under Shane Keegan. They've made Cove a really tough place to go. Again, that would have been a really tight game against Bray, and to come out on top of that. And obviously Ian Ryan's decision to leave Wexford to go to Bray turned a lot of heads at the time, because everyone felt Wexford were on the up. But with the promises that Bray gave, maybe that he can run it his way and implement what he wants to do there, you can see that they're building as well. They're sitting on 12 points. But like you said, the potential is probably in Waterford to go and kick on and challenge Galway. But at the moment, it's Galway's. And if they keep on this upward trajectory, 7 wins, like, in fairness, they've only conceded 3 goals. They scored 19. So it's a fantastic start from them. And if they can keep that going, it looks like they'll be the team to maybe get promoted out of that division and as champions.
Yeah, and before we go, just turning attentions to the Premier League. So Manchester City went into the game against Liverpool on Saturday, which was the early 12:30 kickoff, without Erling Haaland, who was up in the stands beside his father, who of course Roy Keane would have got to know a little bit on the pitch many years ago. But that would have been seen as a big challenge, because those games between City and Liverpool have always been tight, and Klopp has occasionally got the better of Guardiola. However, City then trashed them 4-1. But then again later on in the 3:00 game, then Arsenal took care of the challenge of Leeds. So the gap remains 8, albeit with City having a game in hand. David, looking at it, I mean, Arsenal keep ticking over, but they're going to be playing Liverpool now this coming weekend. And yet City don't seem to be stumbling. They've got past the challenge in Newcastle. They've got past the challenge of Liverpool as well. And of course, they still have to meet Arsenal at the Etihad, I think it was later this month.
Yeah, it's been an intriguing battle, and hopefully it continues right till the end of the season. I think Arsenal maybe will be done a favour by going out of the Europa League. I'm sure they won't see it that way, but that might actually just drive them on to focus on one thing, and that's to try and win the league at this stage. And I've been impressed with how they have just managed games. Obviously they lost key players, like lost Jesus for a long time, and I think people felt that might be the stumbling block for them, but they've managed that period really, really well. Nketiah came in, scored a lot of goals. Trossard's obviously been a good addition. He's sort of featured up front, he's featured on the left, he's proved useful, and now with Jesus back on the score sheet and an impressive performance at the weekend, I think they're looking really, really strong, and I think they probably will go on and do it and win the league, just because they anytime they've stumbled, they've bounced straight back. And City haven't been absolutely flawless, although they were very, very good at the weekend, and with them battling on 3 fronts, it might maybe just slow them up slightly. But yeah, as I said, hopefully it continues right to the death, because it's been a really intriguing battle between the two of them so far.
Yeah, how this young Arsenal team deal with the cauldron of Anfield, even with Liverpool not in the best of form, that's going to be quite interesting to see. I suppose, Graham, from the Liverpool point of view, of course, it was a heavy defeat, and it does hit their top 4 hopes. But then again, they're playing Chelsea, who don't have a manager, in the middle of this week, and it's going to be a very, very intriguing game between two teams that are just cast adrift a little bit.
Yeah, and Chelsea's probably seemed to play their best straight away after they lose a manager. Really, I think that they're becoming that used to it at this stage. But yeah, Liverpool, they're strange in that they obviously can't press with the presence and the pressure that they did before. They're not able to get to the ball. The back line is exposed because their midfield maybe hasn't got the legs to run with people. so that you could see some of City's build-up play was really good, and worked the ball really, really well, just to move Liverpool's three midfielders around, Henderson, Fabinho and Elliott, and he just couldn't get to them then. Gakpo, who has been brilliant and was excellent against Man United, maybe just lacks a little bit of intensity in his press at the moment, and that takes a while. Like, it took a long time for Klopp to get it out of Salah, Mane and Firmino, so it's going to take a little while to get it into these lads as well, if that's the route he wants to go down. But there is a bit of a rebuild, and I do think it's the glaring obvious one in front of you. They do need legs in midfield to be able to run and match teams that, if and when the press doesn't work, can they get across the pitch. But Chelsea aren't much better at the moment. The goals they conceded against Villa were really poor, especially the first one. Lack of communication. Defender comes in to head it when the defender behind him probably could actually take it down and play. And then Villa scored another one from just a cut back from the edge of the box, and McGinn finishes it through bodies. So they've no manager. They probably have about 30 players now. Some of them are happy that the manager's gone. I always felt that they never really offloaded players at the time when Potter came in. So when you imagine that you have a squad of maybe 30 players that can all be available to play with what Chelsea have, mate, 2/3 of them are going to be unhappy that they don't play, and that's not healthy for a football club. So that's where they do need to move players on and maybe trim down the squad a little bit to make sure that everybody feels included and involved. And they just never really bought into what Graham Potter was doing, even though Chelsea gave him enough time and brought in all his staff. But you know, it was a tough gig, because I thought he'd done a great job at Brighton and changed the way they played as well. But the players, I don't think, maybe bought into what he was trying to do, or maybe he didn't have that presence around them. It's the reports you hear, but makes for an interesting game between Chelsea and Liverpool. It's not the way it was 10 years ago, but it'll still be a good game.
Yeah, and David, I suppose on Graham Potter, I mean, he was brought in as a sort of long-term project. Obviously, it's only lasted 6 months, but the squad that has been built is also built for the longer term. So it feels a little incongruous, even despite the poor results and what Graham kind of mentioned there, that maybe there's a disconnect between the players and him. But, you know, could they have not maybe tried to see this out over the longer term, given it is supposed to be a longer term project and not supposed to be this this quick turnaround?
Yeah, I think to be honest, they probably did try. I think if it was Abramovich still in charge, I don't think Potter would have lasted anywhere near as long. But it's a difficult one. Like they've obviously brought in so many players, and Graham's right, there'll be unhappiness in the squad when you're leaving out so many big names. But I think whoever comes in needs to be a big character, needs to be able to manage a big squad full of, you know, internationals and top players, and he has to be able to manage people that are probably manage more of the people that are out of the team than those that are in it. I think that needs to be somebody that the players will admire and will respect. And maybe Potter just didn't quite manage that right. But it's a difficult one. Obviously, the results were just so bad, and while Klopp's results are bad, he's definitely earned enough time to rework that squad and get a chance to build on it again. Potter just didn't have that in the bank, I think, and ultimately, when you're Chelsea and you're spending that much money, you have to get results, and they look destined to miss out in the top four this year, but they can't afford to do that year on year with the squad that they have.
Yeah, and Manchester United, who looked like they were very much on course for a top four, they started to stumble a little bit. But Graham, I suppose one of the notable aspects of that 2-0 defeat to Newcastle yesterday, and what has been a trend in some of their games at the start of this year, it's whenever Casemiro is unavailable, and usually it's been through suspension. This season they are vulnerable, especially in where he occupies positions in the centre of the pitch. There's a stat from Jonathan Wilson in The Guardian this morning where he said that Manchester United are 2.5 times more likely to lose a match when Casemiro is out, and it seems to be bearing fruit.
Yeah, I think we touched on it probably about a year and a half ago on this, is that control in midfield that gives them, that controls the tempo of their play, that, you know, gets the good players onto the ball as early as they can, but protects the back line. And then, you know, you go and get one and it changes them. So sometimes when people are pointing out the obvious, it happens, and Casemiro was one of those that, like the 7-0 defeat at Anfield, he was playing in, and he wasn't great in it, but then the next game, obviously, losing to Newcastle. I think Newcastle were probably a bit on a revenge mission from losing the League Cup final. But Newcastle were better than them. Newcastle ran over them. Newcastle had more about them. They were did more energy, did more pressure in the game. They were much more enthusiastic about the game as well, and ultimately deserved to win. But it's worrying for United when he's not there, because I don't think they have anyone that even controls Bruno Fernandes and puts him and moves him into positions that he's more effective as well. Because when United start losing, I think he loses his shape and his discipline a bit, and affects other players in the team. Then they don't know what position to take up off Fernandes, but Casemiro seems to have that control and influence on a lot of them. So yeah, it's a big miss, but it's a great win for Newcastle, obviously.
Yeah, and that's almost it for this week's podcast. Remember, Ireland against USA in Austin will be live on RT2 and the RT Player this Saturday, with coverage underway at 7 o'clock. Speaking of Austin, we have an interview on YouTube, RT.ie, and our podcast channels with John Gallagher of Austin FC, the MLS club. He's been in brilliant form this season in the MLS, scoring 3 goals from his position as a full back. So I was chatting to him early last week, and obviously we put it out on Sunday, but here's John Gallagher speaking about his goals for Austin this season. Obviously, you've carved your name into the club's history as well with so you scored the first goal at what is the new stadium, the Q2 stadium against Portland. So what was that like?
Oh, it was amazing. We actually hadn't scored the first 2 home matches, so it was like the pressure was building, and you could feel it in the building. So once the ball went in the back of the net, the place just erupted. And it's nice to know that you've had that impact on the community. The amount of people that come up and say, I was there the night that you scored the first goal. So that's really cool for me to see that I've at least left my print on the club in that sense.
Yeah, and you've been leaving a print on the club this season in terms of adding goals from your position as well. So I wanted to mention so you got the goal of the week for the MLS back in I think it's the 3rd week of the season, so earlier this month, and it's against Real Salt Lake, and you might talk me through it actually. My favorite part of it, obviously, and I think it's for those who maybe watch Tony Yeboah in the Premier League, anything that hits a crossbar and goes in, there's like an added oomph to it.
Yeah. No, it was I'd kind of dribbled my way into pressure and didn't have any options, so I thought I'll take a crack at it. And it was on my left foot as well, so my weaker side, but I struck it nicely, and as I was kind of like wheeling off, I said, oh, this has a chance of going in, and it hit the bar and went down. So obviously it makes it look a bit sweeter. So it was nice.
Yeah, and the thing of adding goals to your game, obviously you scored again then against Colorado just the weekend just gone, albeit there was a VAR review first, so you probably had to hold the celebration in for a little while. But is that something that between yourself and your coaches, it's something you've just been looking to add to your game, and now the fruits are coming? Yeah,
maybe. I played a lot on the left last year at left back, just due to availability that we had, and this year I've kind of transitioned more into right back roles, so my stronger, more dominant sides. And I don't really know what's been happening. I've just been finding myself in good spots, and the coaches never put expectations on me to be chipping in goals. Obviously they'd like assists from the wide areas, but I've just found myself in some good spots, and maybe because I've had experience as a winger, I have a bit more calmness in front of goal. I'd like to think, maybe, but who knows? Hopefully it continues. But as I said, to the fans and the media, don't expect me to be scoring 15, 20 goals as a fullback.
You can read, watch, or listen to that in all of the above places. So RT.ie, Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, and also YouTube as well. But that's it for this week's podcast. Graham and David, thanks a million for taking the time.
No problem. Thanks, Raf.